All right, welcome back, everybody. It's Nick Ashler. Today, I know these came out on Voch Lombardi's channel, which I'm guessing a lot of people who are subscribed to me are subscribed to him as well or watch him as well. If you don't, please sure to check him out. He's awesome. But these are my 2021 cornerback rankings. A little bit different, a little bit. We got 12 guys here that I want to rank and talk about, but so let's get into them. Starting with my bottom three, 12 through 10, we have Elijah Molden, Tyson Campbell, and Paulson Adebo. Elijah Molden, little slot. He's probably the best nickel corner in the draft. He's going to be a great player there. But he's aggressive and he's a great run support player, which is really good for a nickel guy. He's a solid tackler as well. And he has good man coverage ability. I just don't love him as much as the 11 other players above him. And we'll get into those guys as we get into those guys. But he's a solid player. I think all of these guys are capable of being second and third round picks. This is another one of those really loaded classes. And we'll go through the other ones as we get through the April, but he's just happens to be our bottom guy. Number 11 is Tyson Campbell. It's interesting that he's like a 5-star track athlete. Apparently, is because he does not look fast on tape. A lot of the times when I'm watching Tyson Campbell, he's solid as a zone coverage corner, and the other guy, Eric Stokes, we'll get into, is a really good man coverage guy. But Tyson Campbell just kind of looks a little bit lost in coverage sometimes, and I think that can be a result of, or that could be why he doesn't run as well on tape as the people are saying, as he's showing as a cornerback. But yeah, he's okay. He's not great. He has a third round grade from me. It's a pretty straightforward analysis. Like I said, he runs really well apparently, but he just is not fast on tape, and that's why he's kind of fallen for me. His mechanics are also not as great as well, which is why he's also kind of lower on the board for me. Moving on to number 10, Paulson Adebo. I really liked Adebo when I watched him. I thought he was one of the more underrated corners in the draft class. But like I said with Molden and Campbell, the amount of players that are packed into this cornerback class and this defensive back class kind of push him down the board and put him down here at 10. So it's an interesting thing. I think he's really good in man coverage. He played really well for Stanford in man coverage. He opted out in 2020, which is not as fun or good as you'd like to see. He was a really good freshman standout in 2018. I watched his Oregon tape in 2018, and that was incredible. I think he can be a little bit too physical, which he does to make up for some iffy, choppy footwork, and he doesn't always turn his head to the football, which is interesting because his ball skills are also pretty solid. He has 8 interceptions through 2 years, as well as 27 pass breakups. That's a lot of pass breakups, and that shows his ball production is there. I like his speed, I like his instincts, I like everything else. I just think the big thing that's pulling him down is his lack of ability to play in zone and his lack of not being mechanically sound as a player. But he's a guy that you're going to put in at man coverage and let him play. Moving on to number 9. We're going slow here again. It always happens. But moving on to number 9, we have Fidu Melifonwu. Melifonwu is a guy that also he's the brother of Obi Melifonwu, so he's a big guy. He's tall. He's athletic. He's a really good man coverage player. And he has really good ball skills. I love his size. I love his ability to play in man. And I also love his ability to get to the ball and find the ball and make plays on it. He's a solid run support player, and he can be a better tackler, but for the most part, it's pretty solid. I like Fidu Melifonwu a lot, and he should be a solid second-round pick. Moving on now to number 8. These top 8 guys is where it really gets interesting, is Eric Stokes. Stokes ran like a 4.2 something at his pro day, and a lot of people were surprised, but I wasn't, because on tape, that kid is fast. He runs really well. His Tennessee tape, I believe, was my favorite. He had a couple of big plays on the ball, and he had an interception there as well. But it really showed his ability as a man coverage corner, his ability to be technically sound, get his head to the ball, and find the ball. Cornerback is my weakest position, so it's tough making these evaluations sometimes, but Eric Stokes is a pretty sure thing in terms of man coverage. His athleticism and his ball skills were there. I like his mechanics as well. As a player, it's just the big thing is he's not a great run support guy because he's only 185. He's a little undersized. But I like Stokes a lot, and I think he could be a big guy on the next level as a man coverage corner. Moving on to number 7, Aaron Robinson, who's one of my favorite kind of underrated prospects in this class. He reminds me a little bit of Richard Sherman, but not all the way like that. He's very aggressive as a defender. In man coverage, he's going to lock onto you immediately, try and put his hands on you and jam you at the line of scrimmage. He's very aggressive, almost as aggressive as the guys at the top, who we'll get into in a second. His speed is solid. His versatility. He plays both inside and outside. His length in his frame is pretty solid as well. Good history of ball skills. His mechanics could be a little bit better. I think he just uses his hands and relies on his hands a little bit too much. But again, he's a solid tackler. He's an aggressive player. He's going to be better in man than he is going to be in zone. He plays a lot of underneath coverage in zone, so he's playing the flats and he's playing kind of that's where the linebackers would play. He's not a cover 3 guy like a Patrick Surtain or a Greg Newsome. So he kind of looks a little lost there, but as a whole, he's a very good player, and he should be a solid addition to any team. I think you could play him, like I said, at nickel or outside. I like him a little bit better at outside because he can lock up those number 1, number 2 threats who are a little bit bigger with his hands and physicality. We got onto our top 6 here. As it shows up, it's taken a little while, but my number 6 guy is Asante Samuel. Son of Asante Samuel, which is kind of crazy to think about because it feels like only yesterday that Asante Samuel retired from the league. But I like Asante Samuel Jr. a lot. And you would say he should be an inside guy because he's only 5'10 and 184, but honestly, I love him as an outside corner. I think he's going to do great in man as an outside corner. He can play both in off-man and press-man coverage and do a really good job of that. He has the speed and hand technique to succeed. He had some really good plays against Georgia Tech in 2020, but after that, I mean, there's not much going on in terms of ball skills. I'd like to see that improve a little bit. He's probably the best run support corner in the draft. He's not afraid to go up and make a play against the run, and that's what I like. That's a complete prospect right there. He could do a little bit better in zone. I think he looks a little bit lost in zone. He doesn't really quite understand where his assignment is, but as a whole, his man coverage ability and his ability to play on the outside is going to be very valued on the next level. So as we move into our top 5 here, it's our top 5 that's pretty much always been the top 5 as we wait for it to load here. But Greg Newsome, cornerback from Northwestern, is a kind of a late guy that has really impressed me as a player. Not only is he a really good man coverage corner, but he also succeeds in zone. I think he could play both. He's scheme versatile in that way, and that is what's probably going to get him drafted in night 1. The athleticism isn't great, but it's still there. He ran well at his pro day, but then again, that's a pro day number, and I don't really put much stock into that. So on tape, he could run a little bit better, but his ball skills are excellent. His man coverage skill is excellent. His zone is really good. He has experience in cover 3. He's a solid tackler, and he's a competitive player. He flies around the field. He has instincts to know where he's going. He's a lengthy, size cornerback. The big thing with Greg Newsome is going to be, can he stay healthy? He did not play a full season in Northwestern. I don't believe he did, at least. And that could be a major downside to his stock and could potentially be what drives him down a little bit. But as a whole, he's a really good player. I like him a lot. Moving on to number 4, as we get into our top 4 guys, is going to be Caleb Farley when it loads. Farley's an interesting player because when we did their cornerback question video a couple weeks ago, and I had all 4 of these cornerbacks that we're going to get into, these top 3 and Caleb Farley. I had originally ranked Caleb Farley right here, but he's dropped down the board for me, not only because of injuries, but mostly because of injuries. Just the injury issue with him is kind of interesting because I really felt like it wasn't going to be as big of a deal, but after the back surgery and whatnot, it's going to be a struggle to draft him and be confident in his ability to stay healthy, especially after 2 torn ACLs or 1 torn maybe. I'm not quite sure on that, but also other back issues and stuff like that. It's going to be interesting to watch how his stock moves throughout the draft, especially on night 1. I think he's one of the better cover corners in this draft because his athleticism is insane. He's so speedy. His instincts are great. People point to his mechanics and technique as not being as up to par as you'd want it to be, but I honestly would make the argument that it's not as bad as some people make it out to be. He doesn't turn his head to the ball, which is an annoying thing, but you can work it out of him. He bites a little bit too early in some routes like we saw in that film session. If you haven't watched that, make sure to go back and watch the cornerback question video from March. But as a whole, I like Caleb Farley as an athletic guy. That the size at 6'2" and the frame as well is really good. I just don't think he's as good as these other top 3 corners because of that injury stock. And number 3, we have Patrick Surtain, which is kind of a surprise because he's a lot of people's cornerback 1. He's probably going to be the first corner off the board. And I believe, let's see, yeah, you've seen my in-depth film session of Patrick Surtain that I put out 2 days ago. But what I kind of discovered with Patrick Surtain is that I don't think it's his speed that pulls him down. He doesn't have great speed, but then again, we look at all the pro NFL defensive backs, none of them have that elite game-changing speed that Caleb Farley has, or Kelvin Joseph has, or J.C. Horn has. They all have pretty average speed, which makes me think that Patrick Surtain can live with it. What he can't live with is not using his hands. Especially in the early goings of the route, I really feel like if he doesn't use his hands, he looks really uncomfortable, and he doesn't know how to recognize routes just by how they're running them. Unless it's a go route, he has to kind of be a little bit careful, and it's okay to be careful. I don't know whether or not that'd be a weakness, but against Texas A&M, especially against a guy number 81, who gave him a lot of trouble that game, especially late, in being able to get off the ball better and be a better player. Which kind of has solidified Patrick Surtain as a cornerback 3 to me, because my cornerback 2, Kelvin Joseph, these two guys were kind of 1A and 1B dudes. And after watching that a little bit more in depth with Patrick Surtain, he's moved to cornerback 3. Kelvin Joseph has moved to cornerback 2. And I love Kelvin Joseph. He's probably my most favorite corner in the class. In terms of just talent, I think our number 1 guy is better than him. But Kelvin Joseph as a player is incredible, and I think he's very underrated. His instincts, his speed, his polish as a player, his athleticism, his ability to play both man and zone, his scheme versatility, even down to his run support. He's willing to come up and make plays against the run. Kelvin Joseph is that guy, and I don't think a lot of people have realized that. And he ran really well at his pro day. He ran in the low 4.3s, which is really good for him. And he's shown that he's that top of the tier cornerback in my mind, and he should be in this top 5 conversation for the corners. I was so impressed with watching his tape, and I think he could be a really integral, good part of a team that can use him as a man coverage corner, as a zone coverage corner, whatever you want. He has the ball skills as well. I forgot to mention that. His ball skills are incredible. He knows where the ball is going, and he knows how to find the ball and make plays on the ball. And that's one of the most valuable things for me when judging cornerback, because that means he can generate defensive takeaways and make a lot of plays. And that's why Kelvin Joseph is my cornerback too. But after that, I mean, there's really no debate for me. J.C. Horn, after his pro day, kind of just ran right up to cornerback 1 a couple weeks after I made that video where I put him at corner 4. The change in it was not only because of his pro day numbers, but also because of Caleb Farley's back issues. I think that kind of had J.C. Horn hop these two guys, because I really like J.C. Horn, and the more I watched him, the more I really was kind of sold on his ability as a cornerback. He's a great coverage corner. That Auburn game is incredible. If you have not, I suggest you go watch that game, because he really just locked up Seth Williams really well there and made it really hard for him to make any plays on the ball. J.C. Horn, again, that coverage corner guy, he's physical, he's aggressive, he can be grabby, but once he understands and gets a little bit more comfortable as a cornerback, he'll be less grabby and he'll be more technique-based. And his technique is already amazing. He just needs to be a little bit more confident in it. His athleticism is really good. His ball skills are getting better. They're improving from 2019 to 2020. He's everything I really would want in a cornerback, and I think he should be able to go high. He's a lot of people's cornerback 1 right now, and I could see why he's also my cornerback 1 because of those outstanding pro day numbers. And like I said, I don't, like with Greg Newsome, I don't put much stock in those pro day numbers, but when I'm able to get my hands on the video and see how he runs, it's a good determination, because when you watch the NFL Combine for 7 years, you kind of get a feeling for how good or bad or how well these guys are running their actual times. And J.C. Horn, it seemed like he was a 4.3, or what was it, 4.3, 4.4 guy. Definitely seems like he was that kind of guy. And that was my biggest knock on him before. His speed wasn't all that great, but it's better. It's definitely proven itself, and on tape it also proves itself. So J.C. Horn is undeniably my cornerback 1 right now. I think there's really no debate. I think the bigger debate is here, a cornerback 2, but I think I've kind of figured that out and ironed that out as well. So This is my whole cornerback picture, 12 prospects as usual. I think these 5 guys could have the opportunity to go in the first round. Samuel, Robinson, Stokes, and even Melifonwu or Adebo could go in the second round. And then these guys obviously are third round guys, I think, to me. But this is a really loaded class, one of the better in my recent memory. And it really helped me as a scout to understand the cornerback position better. So this is my cornerback rankings. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to drop a like and subscribe as always. And be sure to stay tuned for the next video. We're coming out with content all April, so be sure to stay tuned and we'll get going. So see you guys soon, and I guess I will see you guys soon. So peace out.